Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first virtual Dear RM. I hope you like this new format. It's a new experiment for us, so if you like it or don't like it or have suggestions, please let me know. Our topic for this month is going to be stay and how to make it stronger. So I'm going to share my screen and start my presentation here. Okay. All right, so Dear RM, if there was a stay hotline, I'd be calling it. My puppy is just bad at stay. Can you help? Yes, we can. We have lots of ideas for you. So I personally love stay. And if you ask me why, I would say number one is because it helps with impulse control. And that is the thing we work on all the time. So the reason it helps with impulse control is because most puppies, when you tell them to stay, they would rather be going somewhere else. They'd rather be going with you, or they'd rather just be moving in general. So I think of practicing stay as building the impulse control muscle, and that is a thing that always needs to be built. And also I love it because a solid stay, in my opinion, is achievable for everybody. Even if you are a first-time puppy raiser, even if your puppy is very high energy and distractible, stay is one where if you put in the work, you will get the results. It's not super complicated or super difficult. All it takes is commitment and hard work. And finally, the trainers really appreciate a good stay when a dog comes in for training, and so do clients. When they have a dog in their hands and tell them to stay, and the dog just stays where it's told and doesn't move around, it's a really good feeling to have that dog on the end of the leash. So that's what we're working to create, is a dog that is ready for training with a good solid stay. So why is stay such a struggle sometimes? The biggest reason is because it's a duration behavior, which means that you don't just say one thing and the dog does it and is finished. Like sit, you say sit, the dog sits, it's done. With duration behavior, the dog has to hold on to it for quite a while. So it has to remember that it can't move for 15 or 20 seconds or however many until you release it or ask it to change position. And any duration behavior takes longer to build up than any action behavior. So that's the biggest reason why it can be challenging. Along with that, the handler may not have practiced enough, or the handler may not have raised criteria slowly enough. So we're going to have lots of video examples of how long it actually takes to build up a dog's response to stay. It takes a long time, and you can only move at the puppy's progress. So if you try to rush it, you will not have a solid stay. And finally, maybe the dog just hasn't been to enough places and has not generalized the behavior to different locations. So we talk a lot about dogs generalizing behaviors, and that just means that just because your dog does it at home doesn't mean he's going to do it at the grocery store, at a puppy meeting, at puppy camp, with a different handler, all of those things. So let me just talk briefly about the 3 Ds. We're focusing here on building distance, and specifically handler distance from puppy. But the reason I chose that is because that's the one that most people have the most trouble with, seems to be. But I don't want you to forget about the other Ds either, distraction and duration. And before we start talking about the handler distance, we're going to talk a little bit about duration and distraction. So first, I'm going to show you this, just a very short video about how you might build up with distraction. So our distraction is going to be a tennis ball. Stay. So tell her stay. Bounce the ball. Yes. Ball rolls away from me. That was actually an accident. So I yesed her, then I told her stay again, then I went and got the ball, then I picked it up, and yesed her again for staying while I picked it up. So if you notice that when I was working with a distraction, I stayed close to her and I did not ask her to stay for very long before I reinforced her. If I had gone out to the end of my leash and asked her to stay for 20 seconds while I bounced a tennis ball, that would not probably have been a good setup for making her successful. The next one is just a little demo of how you might build up duration. And this one, I start with 5 seconds, and then I go to 8, and then I go to 10. It doesn't have to be exactly like that, and it doesn't have to be a straight linear progression, so that you don't have to go like 5, 8, 10, 15, 20. You could do like, 5, 10, 7, 15, 13, mix it up a little bit. But in general, you should be trying to increase the dog's average duration in a stay. And I'll talk about this a little later. It does not have to be super long for our purposes. 30 to 60 seconds is totally fine. So don't worry about making it really long. So I'll show you a little demo about how to build up the time. Stay. Yes. That was 5 seconds. Stay. Yes. This is 10. Stay. Yes. All right, so those two things are important, but again, today we're talking about distance, especially with regard to handler movement. Stay. Okay, what does a good stay look like? Not just this. So we have here a handler facing her dog with her hand up in the universal stay hand signal, the traffic cop stop signal. So this stay is what a lot of dogs are used to seeing, like when we practice it in class. And there's nothing wrong with this, but this is the easiest version of stay for most dogs because they can look at the handler. The harder versions of stay are like these, where we have the handler behind the dog or to the side of the dog, either side. Whoops, that's the next slide. So we need to get our puppy comfortable with holding position while we're at different distances and on different parts of the dog's body. I think of it like this. I think of the red zone and the green zone. So, and forgive my attempts at graphic design because I'm really not very good at this stuff. But most dogs, if you stand anywhere from their shoulders forward to their face where they can look at you, that is pretty easy to teach. So you even with a little puppy, they can learn that really pretty quickly. That's kind of what the foundation is. The foundation for that is duration on paw pad with handler movement in puppy kindergarten. So you know how quickly the puppies learn to stand there while you're moving and looking at them. But it's a lot harder when you go from the shoulder back behind the dog. So I think of all of that as the red zone. And it's harder for dogs because they can't see the handler. And most of them will want to turn around and look. So our job is to turn the red zone green. And we're going to do that by gradually increasing handler movement into the red zone and then reinforcing the puppy for holding position. And where most people mess up is they do it too fast and the dog doesn't learn what they want. I want to talk a little bit about using yes with stay. So I like to yes when I return to heel position after I move away from the dog, as opposed to saying yes while I'm out there in front of the dog or behind or to the side of and then returning to the dog. In my experience, that makes the dog a little bit more likely to hold position until I'm back by its side. Now, if you always yes when you're out at the end of the leash and you have success with that, then don't stop doing that. If it's working and creating a good stay, then definitely keep doing it. I know what works best for me, and that is to return to the dog's side when I yes, or before I yes, but that's just for me, and there's lots of variation in dog training. So don't think that that's the only way to do it, just what works for me. If you have one of those dogs that when they know that you're marking and treating, they get so anticipatory that they can't sit still, and it's actually getting in your way of teaching a good stay, then you can teach it as if you're doing relaxation protocol. In relaxation protocol, we don't yes when we treat, and the reason is because we want to promote relaxation. So you could, if you wanted to, teach the stay without the marker word and imagine it as relaxation protocol if you have that type of dog. Now we're going to break it down and build it up. I like to start with the dog in the position it's most likely to stay in. So for most dogs, that's either sit or down. I have yet to meet the dog where it is most likely to stay in stand position. Doesn't mean it's not out there, I just never met it. So if you have a dog that's kind of lazy and once it goes down, it's kind of down for the count, then I would start with down. And if you have a dog that finds it really hard to stay down because it wants to be up closer to you where the action is, then I would start with sit. So again, we're starting with what we can make the dog successful with. And we're going to start with small movements. For example, while you're in heel position, you step forward with your right foot, leave your left foot where it is, then step back into position, then mark and reward. We're going to move to bigger movements as the dog increases its ability to stay with smaller movements. And you'll see all this in videos to come. If you increase your criteria too fast, your dog will not be successful. So slow is the name of the game. And we're going to eventually build up to the point where we can circle all the way around the dog. And when you can do that and the dog will hold position, then we go back to the beginning with the next easiest position. So usually either sit or down. Stand is usually the hardest, so I leave that till the end. 3 videos I'm going to show you. The first one is demonstrating the concepts I just talked about with an experienced dog with a solid stay and extensive reinforcement history. So she's a good demo because you don't have to watch what the dog is doing. You just have to watch what the handler is doing. And that's the same process that we're going to follow with younger and less experienced dogs. The next 2 videos after that, young puppies, a 6-month-old puppy and a 5-month-old puppy, and neither of them are used to working with me, and both of them are in a new location. So you'll see a little bit of young puppy hijinks like you probably have with the young puppy you're working with. I do have to turn the sound off in those 2 because the wind is so loud you can't hear anything else. But all you're really missing is the sound of me marking. But I assure you, both those puppies I'm saying yes before I give them the treats. Okay, so we'll watch the first one, experienced dog, solid stay, extensive reinforcement history. Stay. Yes. Stay. Yes. Stay. Stay. Yes. 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 Great. Okay, so that was kind of like the steps on fast forward that you would go through in working with the dog. If you're building up to that, you're not going to do all those in one session, and you're also not going to swing your leash like it's a cowboy swinging their lariat in a Western sideshow, which I kind of noticed I was doing. Although I do that as a little bit of that as part of proofing the stay when the dog is older. So here we go. Our next video is going to be our 6-month-old puppy. Okay, so our 6-month-old puppy, his raiser has actually done a really nice job of working on this at home. So this was an example of how, even though I know that the puppy knows this skill because he's practiced it a lot at home, I don't assume that he's going to know it when he gets to a new place with a new handler. So I started off with a warm up where I knew he would be successful. And I did get to the point where I was able to walk all the way around him. But if I had just gone there and done it cold, and just told him to stay and started walking around him, do you think he would have stayed? No, of course he wouldn't. He would have gotten up because he's super excited, like, yay, somebody new and exciting and fun, and I'd forget all about stay until I kind of remind him back into it. So I mean, this dog, when he's 12 months old, he may very well be able to be just handed over to somebody and stay even in a new place, because look at how he is at 6 months. Pretty good. By the way, he's wearing the infinity collar only because he tends to be a little excited in new environments, and we wanted to help him be successful. So if I were to continue with this training session, I would take the infinity collar off because he's definitely settled down. He's very responsive to me. So, okay, we're going to move on to 5-month-old puppy who has less experience and less reinforcement history. So I'm kind of starting from scratch, and I'm only going to be able to shrink his red zone just a little bit, but that's okay because we don't need to shrink it a huge amount on each individual training session. Even a little bit in a week, you can make huge progress. So we'll watch our 5-month-old puppy. So what happened there, I got a little greedy. I went further into the red zone than I should have, and he got up. So I just went back, put him back into a sit, and I'm going to not go quite so far the next time. Okay, so I would consider that to be a successful session because we did shrink the size of the red zone a little tiny bit. Next time we'll be able to shrink it more. If he got up, that was just a sign I moved too quickly, and I moved back and started over where he could be successful, and then built him up from there. So I'm sure that if we work on this regularly after this session, he also will be, probably when he's 6 months, he'll probably look like the 6-month-old puppy that we just saw. Okay, generalizing stay. So like everything else we teach, we need to practice it in lots of different places before we think the dog actually really knows it, as in they're fluent with it and they can respond on the first cue in almost every situation. We won't say every because they're still a dog and they're not necessarily, whoops, Not necessarily perfect, just like I'm not with Zoom. Um, but every time you go to a new location, when your puppy is still in what you consider the learning mindset for this cue, stay, reduce your criteria. Just like I did with young, excited puppy in the second video, I know that he knows stay in his house. I know he has a good foundation of it, but I also know that he doesn't necessarily know that it extends to new locations. So reduce your criteria, start where you know they'll be successful. And if they have a lot of experience, you can usually build up very quickly to the level that they're at in other environments. And as your puppy gets older, you'll be able to increase the difficulty more quickly to the point where with an IFT ready dog, I would say that usually if they're with their regular handler, usually one cue is enough and you can go right to walking all the way around them because they've done it so many times in so many places, they know exactly what it means. A few last tips. Number one, don't ask your puppy to stay for longer or more difficult positions than it's able to. We've already talked about that. If you go into the meeting and the teacher at the meeting says, okay, we're going to leave your dog in a down and walk around it. If you know full well your puppy, you have not practiced that and your dog's probably not going to do that, it's way more admirable to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to walk halfway around because we haven't practiced that all the way around yet. And that's actually shows that you're a handler who's thinking about making their dog successful. And if I had someone say that to me in my class, I would say good for you for knowing what your puppy can do tonight. And it doesn't mean we're not going to work towards a bigger goal, but they don't feel pressure to do it if you know that you have not practiced it. We don't need a very, very long stay. Really, somewhere in the 30-second to 60-second time frame. The 60 seconds is more than enough. When we're practicing this with students or when guide dog handlers in the real world use it, it's usually not for a very long period of time. It would be like, say that they drop something on the floor and they want to pick it up, or they spilled something and they don't want the dog to get in it while they're picking it up. They might just have the dog stay for that, or um, they might have them stay like while they're getting in a car, or it's not really a very long exercise. It's not the obedience competition ring where they have to do a 3-minute or a 5-minute stay. So that would not be a very productive way to spend your training time, working up to 3 or 5 minutes. If you've got 1 minute, you're really good, and even that's probably more than you really need. When you're still in the process of teaching stay, I will sometimes repeat it, not just when I leave the dog, but when I'm out at the end of the leash, especially like if you see that your puppy might be about to get up, or your puppy is sitting there calm like this and all of a sudden goes like, is looking at something across the street, you can say stay another time. Um, the end goal is one cue only, but because it's a duration behavior, again, there are times where it's to your advantage to pop in an extra stay or this when you know that your puppy is considering getting up. And if you have to do that, you should return to them pretty quickly, so you can mark and reward success. And finally, if you think that your dog is really good at stay, you can, if you want to, try it blindfolded or with your eyes shut. Now, my disclaimer for this is you have to be in a safe place. So it has to have safe footing. And if you have a balance issue when you close your eyes, please don't do this. We don't want anyone tripping over their dog and breaking their head open because they want to see what it's like to do this when you can't see. So if you're in a safe environment and you trust your dog to stay for the most part. Oh yeah, one more thing, slide your feet, don't pick them up and step down hard, because if you lose track of where your dog is, you might step hard on their foot or tail. And if you do that, that's a sure way to make a dog that was really good at staying not so good at it anymore, because it doesn't trust you not to step on it. So slide your feet, don't stomp. And I'm going to demo that doing a blindfold stay here with Pip. Stay. Stay. Good girl. Break. All right, so it's a very different experience when you can't see your dog. You probably noticed I repeated stay like 4 or 5 times, which Pip did not really need, but I don't know, I guess it made me feel more secure or something because I couldn't see what she was doing. So my movement around her was different. My feel on the leash was definitely different because when you can't see where the dog is, you kind of put a little very light pressure on the leash so that you can feel if they move. And when I got back to her side to feel that she was still down, I actually slid my hand down the leash to feel her back. So I was really happy that she held position because we have not really practiced that for a long time. She's career changed, we don't have to. So it's just kind of an interesting exercise to do with your dog if it's all the way at the end ready to go IFT and has a pretty good stay. All right. Oops. Stay. So hopefully you've gotten something out of this. If you have any questions about stay, please let me know and I will answer them in the comments. If you have any suggestions for the format, please let us know too. And thank you very much. Enjoy your day.